Hello, and welcome to our sewing sangha. You'll find a series of videos here on how to make a rakusu in the Soto Zen tradition, and more specifically, in the tradition of Upaya Zen Center with Roshi Joan Halifax's lineage. We'll go through each step in detail to help you create your own rakusu. You might want to like the video so you can find it easily again, and to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell so you'll learn when new videos are posted. If you have any questions or comments, please post them in the comments section below and we'll do our best to answer them. I'm Cheryl Daishin, and today we'll be going over fabric and fabric selections. You'll find links and details in the description below. So let's go to the downward facing camera and get started. All right, so we're going to talk about fabric. So I'm sure that you all know from reading the description in the Jukai book that you need black natural fiber fabric. So we're going to talk about what that actually means, because there are so many different fabric choices out there, so it can get a little confusing. So let's talk about the best choices for you. Now I'm going to show here on a piece of muslin that some of the anatomy of fabric is that these fabrics are woven on an industrial size loom, so that there are the warp and weft fibers and so the configuration of those fibers is what determines what kind of weave the fabric is. You can have twills and herringbones and all kinds of really fancy different weaves, but we want something for especially beginning hand sewing and make our rakusu, something that is just a straight weave that doesn't have all those fancy extras to it. So it's easy to use and easy to find the straight of grain to make all of your strips nice and even. So the selvage is this part here, and you can see where there's like an edge that's very straight that has kind of like a sewn in part. Actually, I have a piece here. On this fabric, you can see the selvage is very dramatic and dramatically different, where it's a very heavy woven material that connects that's how it's connected to the weaving machine. So this is great to keep an eye on, so that you are sure that you're lining up your fabric straight and as straight as possible when you start cutting out the strips. And it's also what we talk about when we talk about straight of grain. And straight of grain means that you want to make sure that the grain is nice and tight and that you're cutting on either this direction or this direction, vertically or horizontally. And you need to be precise about that so that you don't get a strip that will want to be wonky. And what I mean by that, it might be a little bit on the bias, and so it isn't going to want to lay flat. And when we make our rakusu, we want to be sure that the straps will lay flat against your shoulders, as well as the face and the frame around the face to lie nice and straight. So as you're, say, walking kinhin or doing walking meditation, and your rakusu is covering your hands, for instance, you want that drape to be nice and flat along the side. When it's against your body, you want to make sure that it's going to lay flat and be look dignified and lovely. So as you're looking at that, I'll demonstrate this with a couple of other swatches. When you look at black fabric, let's say that you go to the fabric store and ask for, say, quilting cotton or any 100% cotton that they might have, and you want to take a look at each piece and either ask for a swatch that can be cut from the bolt or just pull out some of the fabric and check the weave. And what you'll do is find your selvage edge, and that's the straight up and down. And I'm going to pull gently on this side this way, and I'm going to pull gently in alignment with the selvage and go up and down like that. So you see there's hardly any give. There is some, of course, but not a whole lot. Now, if you go this way, whoa, there you see we're on the bias and we get a lot of stretch that way. And there are garments that are out there that are cut on the bias. You may have made a poodle skirt when you were a young woman and had a twirl and something to twirl and when you are dancing. But being on the bias is something that we don't want to work with because we want to have all of our strips to be straight and on the straight of grain. Now, some fabrics though you'll find have a stretch going those two directions, or maybe the stretch is very low on one end, but very looser on the other. So what I mean by that is, let's take a look at this guy. This is a stretch denim, and look how much more stretch I can get. I'm getting a lot of stretch in both directions. And that's great for making like little dungarees for a little child or, a jacket or whatever to give you a little bit more stretch. And again, our bias is nice and, nice and loose. So even if this was in black, a stretch denim like this would not be the best choice. Now this is a piece of black Kona cotton, and unfortunately can't really see the weave very well because it's a very tight weave, and obviously black is harder to see. But what I'd like to do is just temporarily, this is a light board that I'm using underneath and have found it to be very, very helpful when I've done hand sewing to kind of help my aging eyes along. And, sometimes I feel like I need to have some kind of a little telescope on, a little microscope on my eyes to help me see. So I'm going to turn this on temporarily because it is a little bit bright. And you'll see you can barely see the weave even through the light a little bit, just a little bit here. Now on this guy, you can really see the weave. And this is a Japanese cotton, but it has a pretty nice weave. It's really pretty tight. This is a really nice piece of cloth. But you'll see that it does have that little bit of a slubby texture. You can see some almost a little design in the way the weave is. But that's as designed, and it's a lovely piece. And it might be an option, especially if you have experience with hand sewing. So let me turn this light box off so it doesn't, oops, see if I can push the button correctly. There we go. So as you're taking a look at these different types of cotton, this is a cotton wool blend, and this one is 100% cotton. And we have a cotton denim that has a really nice weave. This is, again, a Japanese fabric. But with this particular one, you'll notice that as you go this way, pretty tight weave, go this way, you have more give. So this particular piece of fabric, if you you might want to get a little extra fabric with this if you picked this. And they do have these in black, but because you would definitely have to do all of your strips in the same direction. And that might take a little bit more fabric in order to make sure that you're getting the tight weave as your straight of grain. And then this weave has more give to it. So it's not as straight as this weave would be. So, and we're going to get into the specifics of that when we talk about cutting your strips. So just kind of file that one away as you go. Some other fabric choices can be a linen blend. This is actually a linen silk blend. And I particularly love this fabric. This is the fabric that I made my brown jacket from when I was ordained in the Order of Interbeing. And I particularly love this fabric because it has a beautiful hand, very soft, and it worked up really, really very pretty. With linen and silk, with linen especially, and here's another piece of linen. And you'll see there, this one has a lot of those slubby texture, those little pieces of fiber that come out to make this real pretty texture that is kind of characterized with linen. So when you're using linen, you'll need to use linen thread. And linen thread is something that has to be conditioned. You'll find that 100% cotton thread and linen thread, really all threads can be conditioned. It's a very helpful thing to prevent it from fraying and to prevent it from raveling up when you're doing your stitches. So that's simple to do as well. One of the things that sewists for hundreds of years have used is a piece of beeswax to condition the thread. So you might be able to find from different sewing stores. My daughter-in-law made me this. She makes beeswax soaps and lip balms and nice things like that. So this was a little piece for me for sewing. And what you'll do is take your, in this case, 100% cotton thread and just pull it through right along the edge. Just pull it through a couple times, 2, 3 times. And set this guy over. And then I'm going to pull the thread through my fingers and just gently remove any little pieces of the wax. It feels so nice. I love the feel of beeswax. You'll find that Gooderman is a terrific brand for linen threads. This particular spool is polyester. But as you're looking at the different types of threads, whether silk or cotton or cotton blend, be sure that you're matching your threads to your fabric. So linen needs linen thread always, and 100% cotton can use the silk, the cotton blends, or 100% cotton that's conditioned. So those are many of the different options. One of the things too with looking at a silk fabric is that a lot of silk fabrics are really soft, which makes them very lovely to have and to hold. And I don't know if you have a silk blouse or a silk t-shirt that has a very lovely feel to it, but it is soft and can really be a challenge to work with for hand sewing for this type of project, especially since we're going to be making these strips with a kind of a small seam allowance. So it might be a little bit of a challenge if you haven't been hand sewing before. Now, the other consideration is what are your thoughts on, if you're a vegan, what are your thoughts on using fabrics that are not vegan? So silk is not vegan, and beeswax is not vegan. So that might be a consideration for you. Oh, and I actually forgot to mention that a tropical weight wool would really make a pretty it would really make a pretty rakusu. You can tell I love my tailoring and love fabrics and these sewing techniques, but wool is not vegan either. So when you're thinking about that, if you're going to use linen or 100% cotton and you need to condition your thread, then they do have a non-beeswax conditioner. So beaters use a wax thread conditioner, and it's either made with like a paraffin or a European palm oil. I know palm oil has some environmental considerations from the tropics, but there are some ethically sourced and sustainable options for European style European palm oil. So those are just some considerations if that's important to you, and want to make sure that you don't feel like you have to do something that kind of goes against the grain of what you would prefer for your values. So the other couple of things that will actually, before we go into different types of the different aspects of the fabrics, is when you get your new fabric and you have like a yard and a half or so of your quilting cotton, be sure that you wash that first. When these types of fabrics are shipped many times from overseas, and they will fumigate the cargo holds with insecticides and other kinds of things. There are different potential contaminants that might be on the fabric. So we like to believe that they're shipped very carefully, but that can be a consideration. So you don't want to have something like that on the fabric of your rakusu without, because you can't wash your rakusu after it's made. So you want to be sure that it's clean, nice and clean. You'll be pressing the fabric first, and we'll talk about iron as well. But to make sure that there aren't any allergies or other exposures to contaminants. So that's an important part. And I did mention ironing. So ironing is something that will be part of the construction and putting the work together. So if you might want to check on your iron to be sure that it reaches the correct temperature and holds the temperature. You can find online how to do that. You might have one of those instant read thermometers you use for cooking that you can actually use to help you make that determination. And it may be that you need to buy a new iron. I've heard of folks, oh, I don't like to iron, I burn everything. Well, we'll talk about more about burning. We'll talk about more about ironing when we get to the construction pieces when it's going to be applied. But one of the things that you can do is, and really under here, is a 100% cotton tea towel. And so I'll put down my fabric, and then I'll put the tea towel on top. And I may spritz it with, get one of those little inexpensive spritzers from the drugstore, spritz some water on there, put the tea towel on top, and then press that with the high temperature that you'll need for cotton. And that will really help you, especially ease your mind that you won't scorch your fabric. And hopefully that will ease your mind that this is something that we can do. And I'll talk more about the specific ins and outs of pressing and using an iron, because it really makes a difference. I know it's, oh, do I really have to? But ironing the seams, ironing the creases is going to make the rakusu very sharp and crisp. And I think you'll be very happy if you follow along with the proper pressing with iron. Now, a couple of things that are also in the instructions are sew-in interfacing. There is interfacing available that you iron in, but you don't want that because you don't want anything sticky or gluey to be in your rakusu. But if you have the sew-in kind, it's just plain. It's a non-woven polyester, and it really does help to keep both the rakusu face and the tab or the placket in the back to be sure that it stays nice and shaped. So that's an important one. The other thing is, let me grab this, is the white cotton. Now, I'm going to tell on myself because the white cotton I used, I have a couple of extra pieces, is actually from a pillowcase. And that's maybe a secret trick there is if you need to buy, let's say that you're buying a black sheet set of a pillowcase and fitted sheet and a flat sheet for your teenage son or whoever, and you don't need the flat sheet. They're just going to have their comforter or their blanket on top, and you'll have a flat sheet that you never use. Well, you could actually use that 100% cotton black flat sheet, and sheeting is a great, one of the types of fabrics that's a good option for you. And use that. So this was a white pillowcase that I cut to size. And we'll, again, in our next episode, we'll talk about cutting the strips and the shapes. And you'll also be soaking this in soy milk. And when I first read that, I was like, I was very skeptical. Isn't that going to mold, or are you sure about that? I've never heard of that. But it is a thing. It's something that is used in dyeing, in different types of work with using dyes. And you take the white, rectangle that you'll be using, and you soak it in 50% soy milk and 50% water. The best soy milk is West Soy or West Life. Is it West Life? I'll leave a link in the description below of the soy milk that is only soy and water. It doesn't have any of the carrageenan gums or flavors or sugars or anything like that. You definitely don't want one with sugar. And you soak that, and kind of wring it out, let it, and then take a towel and, slip, just like you would dry a sweater when you hand wash a sweater. Form it, in the rectangle, and smooth it out and let it almost dry, and then give it a good iron and make sure it's nice and, and flat. And I usually just, fold it over the guest room shower curtain and let it dry completely. And then when you're ready for it, you'll be able to use it. And the soy actually helps the ink set nicer for when you send your Rakusu into Upaya. They'll be putting a red stamp, and Roshi Joan will be writing her name in the calligraphy brush and inks, and all of those things will set much better by using the soy to prepare the white fabric. So, the more you know. So those two things are a pretty cool thing. All right, some of the fabrics that really are not acceptable are going to be things like canvas or a stretch fabric. You don't want to use a knit or t-shirt material or terry cloth. It seems like, oh, it's, that goes without saying, right? Well, nothing's obvious to the uninformed if you've never done it before. You don't want to use a sweatshirt or material or any of those types of things. Brocade would also be one that we would not use. But on the other hand, a couple different things. Here's a piece of some purple satin, and this is what I used on the inside of my Rakusu envelope. And we'll be all the way at the end of our series, we'll be showing you how to make an envelope for your Rakusu. And it's nice to have the smooth, shiny finish, because then when you're sliding the Rakusu, folded Rakusu into the envelope, it's going to go right in nicely. So that's a fun thing to use, and you can whatever color or whatever. Now the brocade, and you could use that on the inside of your envelope as well. But the brocade, and you may have seen some, really beautiful rakusus and kishas that are made with these lovely brocades. And this one I think is relatively double-sided, but that's not something that we're going to be making. We're humble, and we're going to make our first rakusu as the first step in our bodhisattva path. And this will be reserved for a venerable master. I believe that Roshi Joan has a beautiful gold brocade rakusu. These are rakusus that are crafted and then given as gifts for specific occasions and different ceremonial kinds of things to really honor the teacher and their accomplishments and their leadership. So we can admire the brocade from afar and enjoy that. And so, and like I said, I will be adding some resources for you, that different places where you can find some of these fabrics, as well as the different notions that go with that. You may find a quilting store near you. There are different online stores as well. Some small businesses and women-owned craft stores, those types of things. So we'll leave some of those for you. Now, if you do have questions or comments about any of these fabric choices, or if you don't quite understand any detail, do be sure to leave your questions or comments in the comments below, or you can email me at sewingsangha@gmail.com, and I'll leave that email link in the description as well. So be sure that you have your questions answered, because our next episode will be talking about how to cut the strips that we'll be needing. And that way we'll be almost ready to start sewing. So excitement, right? So this is our mise en place aspect. We're going to have our sewing supplies ready. We'll have our fabrics selected. We'll have everything ready. Then next we'll be cutting the strips, and then we'll be beginning the process of sewing the strips together, and watch our rakusu take shape. Oops. All right. So Thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you have questions or comments, leave them in the comments section below. You might want to subscribe to the channel and click on the notification bell, and you'll learn about any of the new content or videos that we have available for you. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.